Episode 135, listener question, what do I do about my stressed out husband? Hi, ladies. Happy to be back here again with a little bit more of a voice. Thank God. I decided this week to take a listener question. I have a couple questions that have been kind of sitting in my inbox. I haven't had a chance to get around to them because there was other things I really wanted to go over with you. But the good thing about these is that they are always relevant. They don't seem to go out of style. Often, a question that one of you has is something that I know that a lot of you will benefit from. And so this person, I'm actually not going to give the specific details that she shared, but just kind of the overall gist. And we're going to talk about what you do when your husband is super stressed out. Now, I just want to say before we get started that if you have a really specific question that you want to get coaching on, the very best way to do that is, yes, you can email it to me and maybe I'll be able to get it into a podcast at some point. That would be Kayla@KaylaLevin.com. But really the best way to get your questions answered would be to come on and join us in How to Glow. So if you go to KaylaLevin.com/coaching, you can join us. We have coaching almost every single week of the month and a way to submit questions anonymously all month long. And you can try it out for a month. There's no contract, no long-term commitment to being in the program. And I would love to have you join us. It's super streamlined, overwhelm proof, just a way for you to get the support that you need and to have that kind of growth forward momentum that we all got to have to keep our brains kind of focused and on the right track. So I want to invite you personally to come and join us inside of How to Glow. But now let's take this question. Okay, so she writes, I had an idea for a podcast topic that I don't think you covered. It's actually relevant to current events lately. I want to know what to do when you or your spouse is having a crisis and is not dealing with it properly, or if there's a crisis in the world that you or your spouse is taking very hard and not functioning as they normally do. If it is you, that is one thing, but what do you do when it's your spouse, especially when it comes at a busy, high stress, or just the wrong time? Okay, can everyone relate? Even if it's not right this moment, I'm sure at some point we've had a time where our husband has felt really stressed out, or he's been not himself, or he's whatever the thing is. And our thought is he's not dealing with it properly. So I just want to say, first of all, to this listener, you are for sure not alone. I know this is a lot of people right now. The first thing I want to say is I actually wanted to point out two of the main thoughts here that are going to make it hardest for you, right? Meaning write the question however you want. I always say, like, when you come to me, you just give me what's going on in your brain. Don't worry about the coaching piece. But now that I'm seeing what's in your brain, I want to kind of share back to you what I think might be making this harder for you to work with. The first piece is the thought, this is just the wrong time, right? And I think the truth is that it's like always kind of the wrong time, right? Like there's never a point where we're like, oh, things are running smoothly. Hey, husband, want to go offline, right? Generally we have like pretty busy lives. If we also kind of adjust to the level of busyness that we're used to. So even if things are a little bit lighter than they were at another phase, does become our norm. And so I would just kind of like see if you can catch your brain on this idea, like this is the wrong time, because that's going to put you in a lot of resistance. And what's going to happen is that anytime we're in resistance, like basically this is the wrong time kind of translates to this shouldn't be happening right now. And when we're in that phase of just denying really the reality of what's going on, our brain loses all of its creative potential, right? All of your problem solving, all of that is going to go away. Now, it could be that you're in that phase sometimes, and at other times you're like, I wonder if there's something I could do to make this better, which means that in that phase, like in that mode, you are being creative and problem solving, right? So we switch sometimes back and forth, but just catch yourself when you're like, this is too high stress. This is too busy. This is the wrong time for this to be happening. I would just catch yourself and be like, well, I guess if it's happening right now, this is kind of what's supposed to be happening. Let's just see like where can I redirect? And I'll talk about that a little bit in a second. The other piece I would say, which is the thought, he's not dealing with it properly, right? And I get what you're trying to say for sure, but I think that catching your brain on that one's going to be really important. Okay. I think this is Rabbi Schaefer. I don't know I think it says Schaefer, not Schaefer, but it's spelled Schaefer, who is the rabbi from the Shmooze. And he has an article now in Mishpacha. And one of the things that he said recently that I really liked was, because we live with our spouse, we have the closest the most up close view to how they operate their lives, which means we probably have more ideas than anyone else on the planet of how they could be doing things better. That's just the reality, right? Because you're in the same house and you're living together and you're seeing what's going on. And so in this case, right, she's watching how he's dealing with the stress and she's like, this doesn't work. So for instance, I don't know, she didn't give exactly what's going on with her husband, but one example that I know comes up sometimes is like, let's say he's just staying up all night long, like chasing rabbit holes of like news and what's happening and trying to understand it and whatever. And like now he's exhausted and he can't get to work the next day or he can't get to Minion the next day, right? So I could understand why someone would be like, you're not dealing with this properly. Sleep is what's going to help you handle your stress, not staying up hours and hours and hours trying to figure out what's going on in the world, right? We have that perspective because we live with this person. But I think that it's worth challenging that idea, right? In some ways, I kind of just like his response to just be like, yeah, of course I have that. That's kind of what it means to be married. I've got some good ideas. Also, not necessarily my business, like not necessarily helpful for me to give my ideas right now, especially if the other person is super stressed out and not functioning at their normal level. That's generally not when human beings are open to constructive feedback, right? That's just as true for us as, imagine when you're like completely sleep deprived and someone's like, hey, I think that if you ran the laundry system this way, or I think if you started going to work a little 15 minutes earlier, it doesn't work. That's not when we're available to hear that information usually. But I also would just even challenge it on an even more fundamental level. If you can let your brain go there, which would be like, maybe my picture of how he should be dealing with this is wrong. Like for all I know, maybe this is kind of a process he needs to go through and he's going to come out the other side. I know for me, questioning I always think I'm right, right? So like taking that step back and being like, it's possible that I'm wrong about this. It's possible there's more to the picture than I realize. Like I might have an almost 24/7 view of what's going on in my husband's life, but that doesn't mean that I actually get it. That doesn't mean that I actually have the full perspective. I don't know what makes him tick completely. And look, most of us don't even have a full perspective on our own selves. Our own level of self-awareness is still, we're still operating with blinders. So to understand another person, all the more so, right? To think that we understand how things could be, to me, it's so helpful to just give myself kind of that like big slice of humble pie. Like, I think I know what would work. I could be totally wrong. I actually have no idea. Puts me into a place of curiosity because now I can say, hey, what is he getting out of this? Right? Or what do I want to do about this? Where do we want to go from here? But when again, he's not dealing with it right is another version of this shouldn't be happening, right? This is wrong. And that will always keep you in a place of resistance. One tool I want to offer you is to zoom out to the idea of your 10, 20, or 50-year marriage, right? All of us want to be here for the long haul. We want the whole experience, right? We want the whole long, I love thinking about I just dive in. My husband and I are like hanging out with our teeth falling out. Like I want to be that old, right? Zooming all the way out can be really helpful, especially if you're still in your first 5, 6, 7 years of marriage. I think this zoom out process is really important because, as with anything, right? You look at a toddler, so their entire life is 2 years. So every 6 months is so important, right? You look at a pregnancy, every week is so important. The smaller something is, the shorter time span something has, the more we measure every little thing. So 1 month of our husband being a total mess is a really big thing if you're in Shana Rishona. If you've been married for 25 years, it's a very big difference if he goes offline for a month, right? If he's just totally out of commission or he just can't function. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying you have a very different perspective because it's such a fraction, it's such a small fraction of the time you've spent together. And the truth is you don't have to have been married that long to have that perspective. You can give yourself that perspective by just seeing this is what's happening right now, but hey, we're going to be here for a lot of years, a lot of decades, right? When I look back at this, I'll think about this as the phase where I had to swoop in. I remember at one point hearing someone say yeah, that was the bad year in our marriage. And I was like, I think I was married for 3 years at the time. And I was like, the whole year, you had a bad year, right? But if you've been married for 50 years, maybe 20 years, you could have a year where things just didn't quite jive between the two of you, where you were disconnected, where you disagreed a lot, where things were really rough. We have on seasons and off seasons. And obviously we want to use this work to try and have as many on seasons as possible, or at least to be able to manage when things do get difficult. But I'll give you a couple examples. Okay. So first of all, I've spoken to women whose husbands were unemployed and had depression. Right. And so in that case, what's going on for that woman is she's very much a lot of people when they're suffering from depression, they don't have, if he's unemployed and he's depressed, these two like build on each other, right? Because he doesn't now have the koach to go and to look for a job, to put himself out there, to be vulnerable, to just even have the energy to get up and sit at the computer, right? And at the same time, for some men, being unemployed is going to even exacerbate that feeling of, what's sort of like refuel that depression, right? So they're in that mode. And the wife, meanwhile, might have young children, might be trying to bring in the money, deal with running the household. And she's in a phase where her husband was kind of offline. I've also spoken to husbands whose wives had severe postpartum. And what I want to say, and again, very similar, right? Like it was the season where he had to swoop in. It was the season where he had to step it up. And what I want to say is, I know this isn't what we want. This isn't what we're shooting for. I'm not like, hey guys, let's go get to postpartum. Like, obviously not. But I do want to say this is a normal part of a normal marriage and a normal life, is that there are phases in which one person is struggling and the other person can step in. Now, if it's been a really long time and there's just no end in sight and the other person's not willing to get help, of course, that's a very different picture, right? But that's sometimes what they need, is just for us to kind of be willing to step up. And again, I think zooming out and having that perspective of seeing this in a long haul, like along the timeline, right? Draw the timeline in your head, be like, this is where we are on our timeline. We're towards the beginning. This was the rough patch, but then there's going to be all these years where we're on the other side of it. Can help you kind of put this into a context that will be more helpful. Again, I just want to reiterate this, the resistance, when you catch yourself in resistance, any version of this shouldn't be happening, or he shouldn't be doing this, that will be the most important step. And you don't need to change your mind. You don't need to say, no, it's okay. It should be happening. It's really for my best. Like I always try to go to like, this will be, good for my meatos. And no, forget it, brain, stop trying to argue with the thought. Okay. Go back to the playgrounding episode. If you don't know, if my brain is in this shouldn't be happening, I just kind of want to take that thought and notice it, right? Just like I'm doing a mindfulness exercise, like, hey, that sentence just happened in my brain. Don't think that one's going to be helping me a lot. I've never seen someone have this shouldn't be happening work in any way. I've never seen a productive action line. I've never seen that fuel anything productive or proactive for someone. Okay. So like, I would be shocked if you could find me a situation and thinking this shouldn't be happening actually helps you, right? So if you catch it, I just like to look at it and be like, oh, that's not helpful. What else is true right now? Maybe what else is true is I might just look at like, he's struggling. I might look at, I'm struggling. One that you could try is, here we are. What's next? I could say, what's next for me? What's next for him? I probably can't say what's next for him. Actually, I can't control him, but what's next for me, or just what's next? You could also consider, what would be the most helpful thing for me right now? Not what do I need? I think the question, what do I need, will, for most of us, put us into a victim mode, because we're talking about needs. And then all of a sudden, things that are not actual needs fall into the needs category. And it's all the things we don't have, right? So what do I need, again, is one of those thoughts that I think I don't usually see that be very helpful. But what would be the most helpful thing for me right now is a question with an answer that then you can solve for. You see the difference? If I'm thinking, what do I need? I'm going to notice all the things that I can't get right now. And then I'm stuck and feeling even worse than before. But what would be the most helpful thing for me right now sort of forces me to find some answers, right? What would help? What would fuel me? What's the best thing that's available to me in this moment, or that I could go and find for myself? So I think that one of the main tools that I kind of want to leave you with, and this is for in this situation, but it really extends to every situation, is that powerful questions give you powerful answers, right? So if I'm in the space of why is this happening, or how could he do that, or how am I supposed to function like this, or whatever, what are people going to think of us, or any of those things, they're not going to give you powerful answers. So your brain's going to try and find answers, because when you ask questions, it goes looking for the answers, just like the search engine, right? But the answers aren't going to help you. So all I want you to shift to, again, it's not to try and like blind yourself to what's going on and lie to yourself and tell yourself a story that's not true. I just want you to shift to questions that will help. Okay. What could be really helpful to me right now? What's something I haven't tried yet? What if there's another way to look at this? What if there's something else here that I'm not seeing? Right? Powerful questions will give you powerful answers. So I'm going to encourage you to give that a try. We are all behind you. We're rooting for you. We all go through these phases, and you can definitely do it. And cleaning up your brain will take away 90% of the struggle. It can help you with having to deal with the carpool and the dinner and all the things on your own, right? But when we can manage our brain, a lot of that overwhelm and fatigue and exhaustion can kind of just clean out, and we can just kind of stay focused and present on what it is that we need to do. What's the next step? And the truth is that at the end of the day, your marriage and you can really grow from these experiences. Okay, my friends, I'll see you back here next week. Bye-bye.